First of all, I mean, look, I'm not one of those who believes that, three people were responsible for it. I think millions of people were responsible for it. There was a West Pakistan attitude. There's a West Pakistan point of view. I was a high school student at that time, but among my class fellows, I think I was a lone person who, because of my father's influence on me, who actually questioned that, the treatment that many of us meted out to Bengalis at a visceral level. There was a general disdain and disregard for them, and the West Pakistani elite was hostile to Bengalis. So the fact of the matter is that the politics of the time has to be taken into account.
While staying on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, go on to a period when he was, in fact, seemed to be working in tandem with the military establishment. And now next year is going to be 50 years since a very important year in Pakistan's history, which is 1971 and the emergence of Bangladesh. And your very harsh Owen Bennett-Jones, if I may say, on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's role in 1969, 1970, and 1971. And while you do give him a great deal of credit for what he did post 1971 in terms of reconciling the Pakistani people to a very bitter reality, nevertheless, his role in 70 and 71, you're pretty harsh about. Do you feel that he was simply trying to then play along with the military to get the best possible deal for himself?
For himself, for West Pakistan as well, although I think it was Mubashir Hassan, someone close to him made the point, which I thought did ring true, that the surprising thing about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in the run-up to 71 was that he just didn't realize what was going to happen, and that he didn't quite clock that separation was possible and likely, and the outcome that eventually happened. And therefore, he didn't respond appropriately to the crisis. He didn't see the severity of the crisis. So that is in the book, and it is quite a favorable point from Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's. I mean, it's a lack of strategic judgment maybe, but it doesn't fit in with the story that it was all just for his own self-interest that he wanted to become the leader, and he was prepared to sacrifice the country for that. I mean, I think it's also worth making the point, which I did, that there were three people involved in this. So you even though it's Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was very much one of them, there were two others who, in Mujibur Rahman's case, handled it very well from his point of view, and from Yaya's case, handled it disastrously. So it wasn't, there were three. It was a three-way dance. This, and it wasn't all on one person. But certainly, when he made decisions in the course of those events, which did not, as you look back on it, help Pakistan keep it together. Whether it was ever possible to keep it together, very unlikely, and certainly not. I mean, maybe that year, maybe, but not in the long term. And so I don't think I'm quite as harsh as you're suggesting.
But it was a strategic lack of judgment. And Husain Haqqani, what would your interpretation of events be?
First of all, I mean, look, I'm not one of those who believes that three people were responsible for it. I think millions of people were responsible for it. There was a West Pakistan attitude. There's a West Pakistan point of view. I was a high school student at that time, but among my class fellows, I think I was a lone person who, because of my father's influence on me, who actually questioned that, the treatment that many of us meted out to Bengalis at a visceral level. There was a general disdain and disregard for them, and the West Pakistani elite was hostile to Bengalis. So the fact of the matter is that the politics of the time has to be taken into account. And look, I have respect for Dr. Mubashir Hassan, but I have always thought that he's one of those people who got bitter towards the end of his life. And bitter because he was an intellectual who had latched on to a populist political figure. And he had hoped that the deal would be that it would be Mubashshir Hassan's brains and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's popularity, and that'll change Pakistan and bring about revolution. He wrote a book about that, by the way, when he was made Secretary General of the party, a book that Bhutto launched and smiled about. And in his book, Mubashshir Hassan actually talks about that while the book was, Bhutto had no, because Bhutto was not a Marxist. Mubashshir Hassan was. So here were all these Marxist and Communist Party, former Communist Party members, etc., who had joined the PPP in the hope of taking over a PPP, and Bhutto thwarted them. And he thwarted them partly with the help of the establishment. But we must understand the difference between revolutionary idealists and a politician who started his career by joining Ayub Khan's military government.
If you've enjoyed the conversation that you just heard, do subscribe to our channel for much more.